If I had the money, I would definitely be a pill collector.
Yeah.
Like collecting original 80s to put on display and original Auroras and
Right.
Lemons and
That would be kind of cool.
have a little pill museum.
Yeah.
Like, this is the
Pill
one that
museum.
ruined my life.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, well, I guess we should start.
All right.
So, Thomas, I met you at Banyan when I was bringing in a meeting.
did.
And I remember you said some interesting things, and I was like, wow, that guy's probably seen some stuff. But I didn't know too much about your background. So, what was life growing up in Alaska or Utah, wherever you're from?
I mean, you're kind of close. Idaho, so I'm from Sun Valley, Idaho. Very small town.
Lots of potatoes.
Yeah, lots of potatoes. I come from decent family, man. We grew up on a 6-acre ranch. And
Like a cowboy.
yeah, exactly.
Like you had real animals.
I have real Western cowboy. Yeah, exactly. Grew up horseback riding. My mom did figure skating. All skied, snowboard, you name it. And it was nice, man. I grew up, I'd say, privileged. It was a sheltered lifestyle, beautiful place to live. And Idaho will always be home. I mean, I really didn't move out of that area until I enlisted. So I had been there like my whole life growing up. So true Idahoan.
So when was it that you were introduced to the wonderful world of drugs and alcohol?
Yeah, so it wasn't uncommon for guys in high school, boys in high school, for us to go out in the hills on the weekends and have a bonfire. The best way I can put it is a 12-pack of beer was cheaper than a movie ticket. There was one movie theater in all of the town, and it was cheaper and more fun for us to get some beer and go out in the hills. And it started off as a weekend thing. It never really progressed too extensively from that. I was smoking weed. My mom, enabled me, and she didn't really mean to, but she'd let me drink at home. And then my dad would let me drink on the weekends when they had divorced. And so it was 1 week on them and then 1 week with the other. So they would just, trade. And I just started drinking, and I loved it. I loved the warm feeling, the confidence it gave me. So I think that's really where I started was, at home. And all my buddies did it. It was common. And it was a lifestyle. It's like down here, it's all Southern in name. And over there, it's all Western. So it's all like, rustic and cowboy. And it just, everybody drinks. You get off work, you'd have a beer. You'd go to the bar and have a beer. And then I worked, in high school. I had a job at a bar and grill. And wasn't old enough, but they sure let me drink,
When I was growing up, my friend was the dishwasher at a bar, and that's where we would get our alcohol. They make deliveries, and we steal bottles of vodka.
There
and
you go.
There was a time when I would keep 40s under my bed because I liked going out and drinking with my friends.
Yeah.
Until I got into drugs, of course. But,
Yeah.
drinking was just a good time. But for some reason, I always had more fun drinking alone.
Me
So
too.
whatever I would do, I'd go back home, and under my bed, I'd have my warm 40s of Old English and Colt 45, Crazy Horse,
Yeah, the
which I
Crazy-
think they stopped making because it was just,
I think so too.
there was like LSD in it or something. I drank 2 40s of Crazy Horse once, and I woke up on the street outside my car covered in blood.
Golly,
No idea what
golly,
happened.
man.
But I don't know if my mom knew I was drinking at home. But a funny thing that happened was years later, every time I would drink, I'd throw the empty bottles over the fence because we had woods behind us. And I guess my mom, something happened where she bought the property or it became our property, something, and she went out to clean it up.
Oh,
And
no.
she told me, did you know people used to have parties in the woods in the backyard? And I think, no, that was all for me.
Damn.
Just years of me throwing
Busted.
alcohol bottles, 40s, and empty vodka
Yeah.
bottles over the fence. So, Mom, if you didn't know the truth, you do now. Sorry. So what happened after high school?
I enlisted in the United States Marine Corps.
What year was that you
That was
went in?
09. So I remember it still like to this day. I was in high school, man. I had long hair. I had hair down to my nipples, dude. I was a hippie. I smoked weed, and I wasn't, needless to say, I wasn't getting laid in high school. I was not popular by any means. And the recruiters came to our high school, and then there was Army, Navy, Marines, and Air Force, and they had them all, systematically lined up. And I really didn't know what I was going to do. I knew I wasn't going to college. That was, off the table. I was not academically built. In fact, I barely graduated. Like, it all came down to whether or not I got a C or above on my health exam, my final exam. And thank God I got a C plus. But I went to the Army first thing, and I was like, hey, I'm just kind of interested in, enlisting and seeing what you guys can offer me. And the Army guy goes, oh, yeah, well, you can get school. You'll be able to travel. We can get you cool jobs, get you all trained up for, a good MOS, and then that'll correlate to the outside when you get out. And I was like, great. So I took all this pamphlets, paperwork, moved over to the Air Force, and it was like the same thing, hey, what can you guys offer me if I enlist? Kind of the same thing. He just gave me this, well, you can travel, you want to be a pilot, we'll train you to be a pilot. And I thought that was bitchin', like a fighter pilot would have been the coolest job. And then, same thing, took the paperwork, went to the Navy, and guy was like, yeah, man, if you like being on boats and traveling the world, this is the job. And I was like, okay. And I was really interested in it because I was like, I love the water, and it'd be cool to work on a carrier or a battleship. And so he gave me all this paperwork. And then I went to the Marine Corps tent, which was they had the two crisp Marines in dress blues, and I remember I went up and I was like, hey, I'm thinking about enlisting. What can the Marine Corps offer me? And that sergeant looked me straight in the eyes and said, it's not what the Marine Corps can offer you, it's what you can offer the United States Marine Corps. And I was sold. I was like, wow. And so I did the process. It was rigorous. I didn't do great on my ASVAB score, so my MOS selection wasn't great, but I knew I wanted to do infantry anyways.
So you had to go through the boot camp. It's just like the movies with the running over the walls and climbing on the ropes and push-ups all the time.
Dude, it's brutal. And like I remember, so the Marine Corps does this thing, and it's, so I went to MCRD San Diego. If you're west of the Mississippi, you go to San Diego. If you're east, you go to Parris Island, South Carolina. They bust you in at night. Right, and you're young, and it's scary, dude. There's 2 or 3 buses deep, and then a drill instructor gets on the bus, and he's cussing and ripping your head off. He's screaming at you, get off this bus. You get up and you line up on these yellow footprints. You look right behind you, there's a big sign that says, "We make Marines." And I remember, dude, I was like, I fucked up. I fucked up. I was like, I should be at college having, gorgeous women lick my toes, and I should be going partying. I was like, I fucked up. And man, I got my ass kicked in boot camp. And then they do this crucible, which is like 72 hours of everything you've learned, live fire training, in the mud. You're on 3 hours of sleep, getting your butt kicked. And at the end, you climb up this grade, this like mountain that's like that fucking steep, and you're crawling. You got mud in your face, your eyes, your ears, and you get to the top. And then they have you hold out your right hand, say, and they give you the Eagle Globe and Anchor. And you're like, wow, I did it, man.
I've seen it in movies, that crucible part. And
It's
it is
crazy.
absolutely insane.
It's crazy.
And did you see like other people fall out and not be able to do it?
You do. There's it really goes unnoticed. The Hollywood always makes it like, everybody can do it and everybody gets there. Towards the end, there's not a lot of you on the top of that mountain. There's really not. And I mean, and that's why the Marine Corps is very traditional, very prideful. It is the few and the proud. It made a man out of me. It made me the man I am today. Instilled a lot of character, discipline in me. I always say, it was the best 5 years of my life, but also the worst, because it made a man out of me. I'll never get those years back.
So it was 2009. We were at war in Afghanistan and Iraq, if I remember. So where did you go to? And
2 tours in Afghanistan. I went in late 2010.
Was Bin Laden still alive then?
I think he died, if I recall, in 12. I can't really remember. Maybe it was 2011 or 12. That's around the time. So Afghanistan wasn't as bad as it was, obviously, when we first invaded. But what was happening was ISIS was gaining a foothold in the region. So that's who I was mainly combating. And
it's just insane.
Man, and those guys can fight, man. I got to be a part of some pretty cool missions. I still talk to guys to this day that I was overseas with. Combat does something to you. No matter what, I've never seen somebody come out of it perfectly unscathed, to where they don't need help, whether it's therapy, medication, you name it. When I got out, I thought I was okay. Well, I was going to re-enlist, and it was getting close to that time, and I was like, no, I don't want to do it. And the Marine Corps has a funny way of dragging it on, so it ended up in a 4-year contract turned into like a 5-year contract. So I was lost. I really didn't know what I wanted to do. And I learned to, kind of going back, you drink heavily in the Marine Corps. In the military.
What I've heard.
Yeah, I mean, the Marine Corps was founded in a bar. So it is part of the tradition. I always say, like, I learned to drink in Idaho, but then I learned to drink professionally in the Marine Corps. It is, like, part of being a Marine is you
And
drink.
over in Afghanistan, opium and heroin is
Correct.
real big out there. Is that something that gets into the Marines or gets into the Americans over there?
So, just kind of a little funny side story. I had this guy that... I forget how he got it, but a bunch of opium. He got a bunch of it. And so they will test you from time to time. But if you take one pubic hair and you put it in, it's considered contaminated. So they have to wait a whole other Chronicle series before they UA you again. They won't UA you again right then and there. They're like, all right, well, he's fine.
Oh, so that's a good cheat sheet to get.
That's the Marine Corps way, man. You just contaminate it. But he had all this opium, man, and he was doing it. And I wasn't. I was like, no, I'm going to stick with beer. And hard liquor, and but it got me, like a good movie that portrays it is Platoon, because there is a lot of substance abuse in the military, especially overseas. You need something to cope, especially if your old lady back home's cheating on you or something. You need something, like otherwise they're gonna take your rifle away.
Everyone I've met that has served basically says the same thing.
Yeah,
and came back with sort of the same issues.
Yeah. Exactly. And so fast forward, I came back. When I was done, I was really kind of lost, man. Lost my purpose. I wasn't a part of something bigger than me. And I really was disappointed and started getting down. And I said, you know what? I think I want to be a paramedic. And I started doing that route. And I kind of figured it was a way to even out what I had done. Like now I could kind of help people rather than defile civilization,
And you did that in Palm Beach?
I did that in Idaho and then in Palm Beach.
So you went from the war zone of Afghanistan to the war zone of Palm Beach.
Exactly. I'll tell you what, man. I got more trauma and stories from Palm Beach than I do Afghanistan.
It's a different type of fighters, but there's probably just
Lord,
the same amount of guns.
Golly, man. I'll tell you what, dude. I love Palm Beach County, but I can't live there anymore. It is it is violent, in nature, and it's not like just these old lady Ethel fell and can't get up, man. We were dealing with major traumas like
shooting,
kids
stabbings.
shooting, stabbings, It was rough, dude. And I started drinking again. Before that, I was able to kind of handle it.
When I came down to South Florida, started in New Jersey, then Kansas City, then Jacksonville, and I thought I'd seen it all. And then I got to Palm Beach. And it is just the most amazing, I guess, juxtaposition of wealth and poverty that's in the same place. On the island, on Palm Beach Island, they know everyone who goes over. There's no crime because it's so cameras everywhere, cops everywhere. People are beyond rich.
Yeah.
Like, we laugh at the millionaires because the billionaires are over there.
Right.
Like, it's insane. And then you got Riviera Beach and Lake Worth and these places that are so bad.
Yep.
That South Florida ghettos are unlike any ghetto I've ever seen. From New York to Kansas City to L.A., never seen anything like it. It's just so weird. And you cross the street, and then there's millionaires.
Right. It's so crazy. I know you'll see homeless people on the seawall sleeping, and behind them is like, a 200 fucking foot yacht. It's just like, damn.
It's one of the strangest places I've ever seen.
It is. It is unique. And so I was drinking, I would never drink on the job, but after work, immediately I had a bottle of Jack in my car, dude, and I was just chugging. And my dad used to do Quaaludes. And he still had them. Well, he had to plug a guy in Europe because they're not Schedule 1 there, over there or whatever. So my dad was like, well, you seem stressed, son. Why don't you try one of these? I was like, okay, Dad. And my dad was like just an old deadhead hippie, But dude, once I tried it, it was off to the races. I was like, oh my God, I love this. And I'm telling you, Quaaludes, I know a lot of people think they're extinct, but they're not. They're still out there, and that on top of alcohol, I was spiraling. I was dealing with unresolved traumas and issues in my head that translated and correlated to alcohol and substance abuse for me to be able to function.
My uncle, when I started working with him, he was kind of a hoarder, and he actually hoarded pills, and he'd had some original Quaaludes. And this was when I was like 17 or 18, and we were drinking at the time and smoking weed, so I didn't really it was cool, but it wasn't like that big a deal. Then later on, my friend Sace, who has now passed away, unfortunately, we were running from the cops. Long story. In New York City, went to this place called the Freedom Tunnels. If you're into art and graffiti, it's a world famous place. Maybe someone will know what it is.
Wow.
And I had to jump down this wall, and I rolled both my ankles.
Oh, man.
And the cops are like 2 stories up. We're on the ground. I can barely walk. And he's like, "Hey, Leroy, take 2 of these." And I had no idea what it was. But I took it, and I'm laying on the ground in pain. I can't walk. Like, we got away from the cops. They're actually laughing at me because now I'm down here and I can't walk. They know where I am. And then these things kicked in. And all of a sudden, I got up, and I'm walking, and I just feel amazing.
Yep.
And I walked, I forget the exact street, but it was like 76th Street to the Bronx and 115 or something on the Amtrak train tracks through the Freedom Tunnels. Had a blast. And I asked him, he was like, "Sace, what are these?" Like, "Oh, my grandma saves pills." And she had Quaaludes and Tuinol and Seconal in glass bottles. They were that old. The prescription were in glass bottles.
Man.
And she's just been hoarding these pills her entire life. She had a house in New York, a house in Florida, a house all over the place. Each house had a stash of pills, so wherever she went, she had stuff. And then once I did them and found out I loved them, I was able to make some connections on the internet.
Yeah.
And of course, Alt.drugs on AOL hooked me up with a lot of chemicals back in the day. Then Silk Road, and then if anyone knows what that is, you know what research chemicals are. Where to find stuff.
Kind of fast forward a little bit. My dad lived in West Palm Beach. My sister had moved up to up to Colorado, and this was really like the height of my addiction. I was drinking so bad and doing Quaaludes. Just to shower, just to function, I needed half a glass of Jack to sustain my stomach, and Quaaludes just to have the ability to get in the shower. And I was working part-time in treatment. How they didn't know is baffling to me. Or maybe they didn't just feel bad for me. I don't know. I was, then I ended up, long story short, I got in some legal trouble. I was on probation. So, and it was a felony. It's felony grand theft and, dealing with stolen property. When I was working for AMR, I took these tablets that were decommissioned, and me and my buddy thought it'd be a good idea to sell them online, but use my offer up. So it came back to me. So I got 4 years. I was in the slammer for 2.5 months at Gun Club, and this is like 2018 or something like that, man. And I was like, I was trying to reevaluate. I was like, man, I am an idiot. Ended up, prosecution said, look, you can do a year in county or 4 years probation. I was like, probation, get me out of here. So I got out, but I was on probation, and it just was, consistent. And so when I was supposed to basically be off probation, I ended up violating because I missed a payment and my restitution or something like that. So Palm Beach County Sheriff came to my job at treatment and pretended to be like someone looking for treatment in front of all the clients, dude. 3 cops deep with a canine come in. They're like, "Yep, we got you." I was like, damn, I didn't even know I had a warrant. So I was in jail, man. My mom, I called her, dude, and I was like, "Mom, I need help." So she bailed me out, man. I lost my job. I had some money, but I just stopped working. I was like, fuck everybody. And I was just drinking myself into a pit. My dad would call and be like, "I'm worried about you. I love you. Where are you?" We used to watch, him and I eat, sleep, and breathe Formula One, and it was a ritual to always, talk every day about it, and for me to go there every race and watch it. I stopped going to see him. And my dad was definitely concerned, and it got to the point where I was at JFK North in
I
West
was there
Palm.
once.
Yeah,
overdosed and got brought to
Did you?
JFK. Yeah.
So I went there, and they were like, "Okay, well, we can try to get you into treatment." And Banyan sent a driver. They were the first ones that said we can take them, and it worked out because they have a vet program.
So I overdosed while driving my work van, driving my gang banging friend's prostitute girlfriend to get drugs, because that was my life back then. That was the insanity of driving around with bloods in a work van. Damn. But I overdosed. She was able to turn the van to the side of the road. They brought me to JFK. This was probably 2018 or 2019, so we might have been there at the same time period.
Probably, yeah.
And they told me I should go to treatment. I was like, all right. I wake up in the room. They're like, "You need to go to treatment." I'm thinking I'm going to walk out and they're going to take me somewhere, or the cops are going to do something. I just walked out. It's like, well, my van might be there. And I walked back to my van. It was there. The drugs are still there. And I didn't go to treatment.
Yeah, damn.
So JFK hooked you up with Banyan.
Yeah, man, they hooked me up. You know, I'd been in and out like a lot. Like I was living by myself at the time. I pretty much was like homeless at this point. You know, I had this terrible roommate, this guy, I think he's from Brazil. He was just like a Nazi, and I hated him. And I, like, the last day I was like, screw you, man, I'm done. And I was making a scene, and I ended up getting hammered on Ludes, and I ended up at JFK. And this was September last year, and I just remember this lady, she was so nice. Her name is Tracy. I still talk to her to this day. She'll, you know, every once in a while text me and say, hope you're doing well. She worked for the healthcare district connected to JFK, so she got me into Banyan. I owe her a lot. Pretty much everything I have now I owe to her, because she did the lead work for me. I couldn't even talk, barely walk. How I got in that Banyan truck is beyond me. The driver must have hated me. So, but I woke up at Banyan on the 23rd of September, man, and I went to every group. You know, I hit it. I, hit the ground running. I sank my teeth into it. Really, really liked it. I enjoyed it, Banyan, a lot. Yeah, I remember the day you came to speak, man. I think you had Tony with you and some other guy, and it was nice. You know, I was making every meeting, and they sent me to Banyan Pompano, which is another great program, just a little bit bigger than Banyan here. You know, I knew I wanted to come back up to this area. And after that, that's, when I went to Artesian and stayed local, to get out of Palm Beach County. When I was...
Good idea.
Yeah, my dad had passed. We found out he was sick like a year ago in June. My dad was like really, really sick with cancer in his bones, lungs, and like everywhere. And I didn't want to disappoint my dad anymore, so he did get to see me sober and hear my voice sober before he passed in November. But it was rough, man. But I was okay because I was in treatment when it happened, And then my mother passed abruptly, suddenly, of COPD complications in her sleep in January, at the end of January.
It's a lot for anyone to handle, let alone somebody who's freshly sober.
It was hard, man. I was at Artesian, and I got through it. I had a sponsor at the time. Nothing against him. I'm not going to call out his name, but, I tried kind of reaching out to him at the time, and he was busy with work. Yeah, I just kind of had to do it on my own, and me and my sister and brother got really close. I had to fly out there and deal with my mother's estate and stuff, and the gal I'm seeing now, who Amanda, bless her heart, she helped me a lot get through it, helped me hold me accountable, and was like, we're going to get through this together. And had it not been for this program and working these steps and having a spiritual foundation, man, I'd probably be back drinking Jack and, Quaaludes in the morning to get to work.
Well, that's an important part, and it's kind of the main thing, that in that room there might have been 20 people that I yelled at to get a sponsor and work steps and follow through with this. Don't go home, go to a halfway house.
Yeah.
And there's people like you who listen.
Yeah.
And then there's the rest of them.
Right.
Who, like the kid who raised his hand last night, said, I remember you at Banyan my first time. This is my third time.
Oh, man.
Said, did you get a sponsor? Well, no.
It's like, oh, so you didn't do what I suggested. Yeah.
I mean, it's not a very hard formula to follow.
It's
but
not.
It is amazing to see people actually do it. And
It is.
That's like, how does Tom say it? The experience you must not miss that they talk about in the big book is watching people that actually
Succeed.
did it.
Yeah.
Because it's really not that hard.
Right. We make it hard.
Well, that's true.
But it is so simple. It is. I agree.
Some of the big lessons I've learned in the halfway houses is watching other people completely do the wrong thing and completely fail. And learning from roommates that don't really like.
Yeah.
I go to these meetings still at Artesian and different places, and you get to hear the fights over someone took my peanut butter, and he's not cleaning, and he's doing this, and I want to leave. And like learning to get over those tiny problems is what it's about in a halfway house, because real life problems are so much worse.
Right.
And if you can't learn to deal with those little tiny things, you're definitely not going to deal when a parent passes away.
Yeah.
Or when the big things happen.
Exactly.
So you have any memorable roommates that did anything memorable?
I was in a good house with some good guys at Artesian. One in particular was my actual roommate. You and I both know. who was a character none the least. I'm not gonna blast him, but ironically, he's actually my roommate now at a new place I'm at, as you know, and just we don't share a room, thank God. Thank God. There's nothing worse than having to pick up after a grown man. But I was with some good guys. My first house at Artesian, man, I remember I came in, and Artesian's not like super beautiful and nice on the inside. It's you know, it's a little rough, but it's got a lot of character to it. And you know, like I needed it, and it was a humbling experience. Alex, this guy I was living with, great guy. I was with him in Banyan. I was so surprised when I came home one day and he was in the opposite bed, or his stuff was in the opposite bed. And I just recognized like his tumbler, and I texted him because I got his number before I left, and I was like, dude, did you go to Artesian? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, you're my roommate, and he was like, no fucking way. So you know, it was cool, man. And I talked to him to this day. You know, I definitely met some good people. I know you had brought, you know, some meetings in. That's where I met my first sponsor, Richard. He came in and he would bring like the Wednesday night meetings. I didn't work any steps ever until I was like about a week or two into Artesian, and I just knew I was like, I want to do it. And I was being problematic about finding a sponsor. I kind of was like, I want him to be perfect. I want it to be just, you know, it's got to fit. It's got to be perfect like a glove. And Richard spoke, and I was just like, dude, I need to do this because I'm miserable. And I hadn't, you know, lost my mom at that point yet. So, and it was important, man, that I get into it and really read this book. And still to this day, sometimes I struggle with it. Like, I might as well just be, you know, reading Chinese or something. Like, the book is a difficult read at times, but I enjoy it.
Well, that's why you found a sponsor who knows how to break it down.
Exactly.
And, you know, I have a high tolerance for pain and suffering. Mm-hmm. So, like, I made it a long time without working the steps because I'm just used to being miserable. But, of course, once I did it, everything changed. An important part of my time at Artesian was because I met a girl.
Yeah.
And I know you're not supposed to do that.
I know.
And it brought me a lot of pain and suffering over the years. But the truth is, I was able to make it with her because she was like my psychiatrist. My level of crazy, when it fully comes out, is hard for anyone else to handle.
Right.
And she's legally so crazy that, like,
certified.
It just works. Yes, actually certified.
Wow.
If it wasn't for her, I wouldn't have made it.
Yeah.
I say that, but maybe if it wasn't for her, I would have dove into the book faster and been a better person. I could be a professional counselor by now, but it didn't work that way. But because of her, you know, I was able to make it. And I know you met a girl too, and she seems to have her stuff together. And, you know, we both ended up in a weird situation where we did what we're not supposed to do.
And it worked out. I agree, you know, and I kind of I met Amanda at fellowship, and you know, I just knew, man. I was like, she's gorgeous, and she's, you know, there's something mysterious about her. I got to get to know her. I remember, like, when we first hung out, man, we were laughing like kids, like just giggling, and I hadn't really laughed like that since I was an actual kid. Like, to this day, man, she is, like you said, my therapist. She's my rock. I see her every day. I get anxious if I don't see her, honestly. Like, I get sad and upset if I don't spend time with her. She's my world, man. I love her to death. And just like you were saying, man, like, we did follow a different path, but, you know, it is rare, like, you know, the so-called guy that it doesn't work from other people. Like, they'll go out, you know, because of it. And so it's cool to see you, you know, and successful. And I think that's one of the reasons that I really, you know, you just drew my attention when you'd speak and stuff. Like, it was with such blunt honesty and sincerity, but it was like you had this attitude where you're like, I don't care if I offend you. This is how it is, and this is what I did. And if you want to stay alive, I suggest you do something or very similar. And I was like, wow, man, that guy's pretty cool. I like how he talks.
Well, I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Because your life is on the line. I'm sorry if this hurts your feelings, you're definitely not going to make it out there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just an example. A kid I met at Artesian had a lot of potential. This kid came from jail, got into the program, realized his life was going in the wrong direction, wanted to just read the book, read the Bible, was just dying to get into it. And I was like, you need a sponsor.
Yeah.
You let me know. Because you have the type of attitude I had. Like, I can help you out. He's dating some girl now. He doesn't want to do anything.
Yeah.
Now, you know, maybe it'll work out for him. But you know what? 99% of the times it doesn't. I did my part. I tried.
Right.
So I was working in Laredo, Texas.
Ooh.
And you could walk over to Nuevo Laredo. You could just buy whatever you wanted.
Oh, yeah.
And there was a spot, someplace I met on AOL, Alt.Drugs. This guy told me the name of the place, and they had Quaaludes. I went down there, came back. They basically told me how to cross. I watched people do it. If you came back at a certain time, all the other workers would come across, and they have Home Depot buckets with their tools and stuff on it.
Right.
And they just ask if you're a citizen, yes or no, let you go. So I had these 2 5-gallon Home Depot buckets full of pills. I mean, I had Xanax, Valium, Klonopin, and tons of Quaaludes in these weird little bottles with an Indian on it. And they were disguised, looked like vitamins.
Oh, okay.
I just did it like all the other people. They let me across. That night, I got to the hotel, and all the other engineers I'm working with are drinking. We go out to party, and I ate like 4. And I was like, I've done this before. It's no big deal. I don't remember what happened, but when I woke up, I passed out in the hallway of the hotel and my head went through the wall.
Oh, my God.
So I'm laying.
Oh, my God.
I spent the night sleeping with my head inside the wall, just laying on my face. And somewhere, there's a bunch of engineers in Kansas City that have pictures of it, like actual pictures, because it was the early 2000s.
I'd love to see that, man. I'd love to see that, Leroy.
So,
that's awesome. Dude.
Any exciting Quaalude stories?
Yeah, man, I got some lewd stories. One in particular that will probably go down in severe infamy for me. I loved downtown West Palm Beach. I loved hanging out there, drinking, doing lewds,
Like Clematis Street,
yeah,
that area.
Exactly, Clematis Street. And, there's a lot of bars and there's clubs there and stuff. Well, one night, it was common for me just to put a backpack on with some, whatever, water, things, Gatorade that I'd empty and put liquor in and walk and just enjoy it, And I met this guy who, a lot of people will moor their sailboats there and just basically live there for free, and then they'll take their little dinghy up to the dock and then they can go shop for food or whatever. So it's free. They can anchor there. I met this one guy, man, and he was a photographer, and I was just small chat. I was like, I like your boat, man. The thing's cool. And he was like, yeah, man, if you want, you can come check it out. Ended up being like a week. I was living on this boat, dude, because he said he was hiring me to be his first mate. And he was like, we're going to go to the Bahamas, man. We're going to have a photography gig. I believed this motherfucker, right? So I was like, okay, cool, man. I'll be your first mate. And it got so bad because he wasn't paying me. And I was like, when am I going to see some money, dude? And he was like, oh, we'll get it. So one night, man, I was hammered. I was like, you know what? And he was literally a drunken sailor. He'd be going out to the bar and wouldn't come back paddling or come staggering back to his boat at like 3 a.m. And so one time I laid in wait in like this alleyway, and I saw him staggering. Gave it another hour or so. Snuck onto the boat, stole his nice Nikon camera, just grabbed it and bounced, and I put it in my bag. I was so messed up on lewds and alcohol. I passed out on the seawall, and I woke up to City of West Palm police officer poking me with his baton. And I was like, I got up, my phone was laying on my chest. Thank God it didn't fall off into the water, and I kind of rolled back onto the concrete. And the guy, he looks at me, he's like, do you need medical? And I was like, I don't think so. He's like, good, then get the fuck out of here. I was like, all right. So I'm getting off, and I staggering away. I'm getting ready to order an Uber home because I didn't have a car at the time. I look at my bag, and I got that camera. And I was like, oh gosh, that looks familiar. I think I know that camera. And ended up pawning it. And then I saw him a couple days later, and he's like, you stole my camera, you stole it. And I was like, where's your proof? And he did a police report or whatever, and nothing ever came of it. And quite frankly, I still had a grudge that he didn't pay me and had me do all this work. I was cleaning the boat, doing everything. He never paid me, so I was like, you know what, that's payment. And
that's kind of fair.
So I mean, but it was bad, man. I there was a couple times where I would just pass out on the seawall, and one time I was drenched because it had rained, and I mean, alcohol and Quaaludes, you pass out, man, you are out. So yeah, that was a bad one.
My friend came out to Kansas City in 2001. We just had these insane parties. I had these bottles of Quaaludes. These weren't the lemon good old school ones.
Yeah,
they were just
lemons,
made by some other company, but it was the same chemical.
Right.
You could get that same taste in your mouth.
Yeah,
oh my God.
I know.
So we just have these parties and just give out handfuls of them, and then people just start turning to jelly and falling out. It's like you can't really describe it unless you've done it.
I know.
After a certain amount, your body just works differently.
It does, man. So many people will be like, please describe it. I want to know. And I was like, I said, if you've ever seen Wolf of Wall Street, it's a pretty accurate way to depict that particular drug. Even when I went to RBS, after Banyan and stuff, and I was doing their outpatient, there was one guy there. And once I said the word Quaalude, he pulled me aside and he was like, "Dude, I have one reservation in my lifetime.
I never did.
And it was for Quaalude." He's like, "I gotta tell me about it." And I was like, God damn. So it is, people, I think, after Wolf of Wall Street, people like really wanted to try it. We're like, whoa. And it's not really easy to come by. You got to really know somebody and work your channels. But,
The last time I was around people that actually had the real ones was 2004.
Yeah.
And my friend from Philly knew someone in New York that still had the original ones, and they were like $40 each because they're rare, but there's got to be someone that has a warehouse full of them.
Right. I know.
Because real ones still pop up sometimes. And it's funny. If I had the money, I would definitely be a pill collector.
Yeah.
Like collecting original 80s to put on display and original Auroras and Lemons. And
that would be kind of cool.
Have a little pill museum. Yeah. Like, this is the one that ruined my life.
Yeah, exactly. And this one ruined my life.
There's so many good pills with the history behind them.
I know, man. I know.
So it should be a series of videos interviewing people that I've done Tuinol. I've done Seconal. So one thing I have absolutely no clue about is dealing with people from wars. I don't know how to deal with veterans, and there was one at the meeting last night. It's just a whole different level of trauma and experience. Like, I can't imagine the stuff I've seen from movies. I know it's watered down compared to what you people really saw. What advice would you give to other vets out there? Because I know it's a huge problem with homelessness and drug addiction and suicide among vets coming back.
It is one that I always, a lot of vets have a bad taste in their mouth of the VA. I understand the VA can be a pain, but if you utilize it for what it's there for, you can get the help you need. You just got to go and you got to do that legwork, You can get into treatment centers, good treatment centers. Like they have a Banyan in Alaska that's just for vets. Just for vets. That's it. They specifically combat mental issues and substance abuse issues for vets. Reach out to your nearest VA or VA connection and get the help you need. Get that insurance is good, and it's worth it to undergo that treatment and get the help you need. There's vets really can kind of pick another vet out in a room. We kind of draw to each other in a weird way, and it's I can tell a Marine just based off, really like his characteristics, the way he walks, the way he presents himself. There's certain things that you pick up on. And, for me, therapy was the biggest thing. And when I was in a vet room with a bunch of vets in Banyan, we were all talking and could share the same issues and understood the same feelings. My best friend that I was in Banyan with, I met him. He's another Marine, Randy. He's my best friend. He's a brother to me. I love him. Him and I talk just about every day. He lives up in Denellen, Florida. He's always like, dude, we got to move in together and have a compound. If the apocalypse happens, we'll have a tunnle. And
that's awesome.
He's a great guy, dude. And, I help him and he helps me, man. Like, we think the same. When we go into a Walmart or something, we're both looking at the same stuff. Is that person a threat? Emergency egress over there, trying to streamline things. Marines are we pride ourselves on, time hacks and no deadlines and getting stuff done. And so him and I kind of hold each other accountable, and he helps me with my my issues and my sobriety and stuff. When I'm having a bad day, I can call him, and we call it a battle buddy, having an ally. And he was in Iraq, I was in Afghanistan, so slightly different, but for any vets out there, man, get plugged in with other vets. VA, there's good AA meetings that are specific for vets. A lot of vets, combat veterans, have a tough time in crowds. That's a big thing for me. Like last night, I had to leave early, just my anxiety was through the roof. And I love that meeting. It's my home group, but sometimes it gets so packed. I'm like, oh my God. So, fellowship too. When I see every line of tables is maxed out, I turn around and walk out, So,
Yes.
for any vet, man, ease into it. get yourself into an uncomfortable position where, your sobriety's threatened because of it, ease into it and take your time and like get a sponsor, man, work these steps and really dive into the book, because once you get sober, man, you can draw all the parallels. You can really see, gosh, that I was like that, but it worked out because I ended up like this, and you can see these chips fall into place and kind of work out the way they're supposed to, and have a healthy dream. I think the statistic is 21 or 22 military veterans die a day by suicide, and it's becoming an epidemic in a way. So there's always help, always, and I think for anybody that struggles, the biggest thing I would say is reach out to the VA, because you can get the help you need.
And then when you get that help, listen to the guy who comes in and says, get a big book, get a sponsor, and work the steps, because you can be the next miracle.
Do it. Man, those steps saved my life.
Amen.
Yep.